As someone who plays games a lot, there's a lot of games that I've added to my completed list over the years. Normally, I'm able to articulate how I feel about a game, and I typically don't replay games, or if I do, it's not that often. Even when I play something like an MMO, I typically drop it after a couple months and then come back, half a year to a year later. However, in all my time of playing games, there's only one game that has ever left me entirely unable to describe how I feel about it. Only one game that I have been consistently playing on and off for almost 10 years since release. Only one game that I simultaneously love and hate in equal measure and without contradiction. That game, that singular, paradoxical, annoying stain in my library that continues to crawl its way back into my life like a cockroach after a nuclear bomb was dropped, right here on screen. Welcome to For Honor. Released in 2016, which feels weird to even say, For Honor was developed by none other than Ubisoft. For Honor is a sort of blend between melee combat, MOBA elements, and other various things. It's kind of difficult to actually summarize what For Honor is for me, because it takes so many elements and game modes of different influences added in, and just kind of shoves it into one slop game. I guess at its core, it's a game about fighting people with various melee characters, but were it so easy to describe it this way, the video would be a lot shorter. For Honor is a game for those on the spectrum. I mean, your average match consists of like a Puerto Rican with the Punisher flag, a gay dude with the SS symbol or some variation of the Sonnenrad, or the classic smoke detector going off in the background. It's also a good home for those like me, whose parents divorced when you were a little baby. Personally, I was a big fan of the furry community that used to play this back in the day, because they were the sweatiest players 99% of the time. You get ass clapped by the enemy team, and one of them drops a fucking ooh-woo in the chat, knowing you can't do anything about it but mauled. Frankly, I'm not even sure I could call this a review. It's more like a journey given digital form. On this journey, I'm going to talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of this game, and hopefully do so in a way that doesn't result in me devolving into a rambling madman. The basics, the balancing, the story, the different modes, should you even play this game, and all that's in between. If I were to cover literally every facet about this game in detail, I think I would be here for about 4 hours or so. I've put timestamps on my previous videos, but they're actually useful here. This video is going to be a bit disconnected in its sections, and that's partially because the entire game is disconnected in a way. I'm going to try my best to follow a discernible progression, but I apologize in advance for when that falls apart. In fact, I'm literally stalling right now as I write this script, because I genuinely do not know where to even begin with this game. With that being said, let's get started. For visuals, on a technical level, the game looks and runs really good. The game's undergone several multiple visual overhauls over the years, updating textures, fancy tech features, and whatnot. And for me, it's ran good the entire time. I've got a half-working 10-year-old Dell laptop, and even that can still somehow manage to run this game at medium settings at a solid 60. So there's no outstanding performance issues that I'm aware of. I will note, I play this game on PC, so I can't speak to whatever performance shenanigans consoles may have. The game used to run at 30 FPS on consoles. I think they put it up to 60. There used to be a real point of contention about whether or not locking consoles to 30 frames would impact your skill level, but nowadays everyone's on the same playing field in that regard. For the environments, I would say the main unifying aesthetic is warfare and ruin. Every location is a battlefield, so there's lots of destroyed buildings, corpses, discarded weapons, and everything else you'd expect to see when two nobodies are fighting over nothing. Some of the terrain is literally broken apart, being torn around by volcanoes, earthquakes, and other various natural disasters. It's not a happy place, though there are some locales that are a bit more serene. Maps can also show up under different weather conditions, so what may be a clear day in one game may be doom and gloom in the next. So overall, there's some nice variety here. I will say the maps can feel a bit samey, but that relates more to gameplay rather than their looks. As for the heroes, they all fall under one of 5 factions. I'll talk more about the factions later, but know that we have Knights, Vikings, Samurai, Wulin, which is just China, and the Outlanders, which are a faction that has no faction identity. Most of the heroes visually represent their role in their faction, though there are some outliers. This is a knight, and this is not. Each hero has a fairly large amount of gear variety too. Yeah, sure, some are just tiny reskins that turn your leather into hardened leather or something, but there's a good amount of actually distinct pieces to where you have room to really visually define each hero. Most of the heroes can also have their physical traits changed, such as their gender and skin color, though not all. I'm not getting involved in the whole gender type options debate for this game. Just know that no, you cannot recreate the white pharaoh meme. Also, if you advocate for having body type options available for all classes, does that actually make you, like, woke in a sort of roundabout way? Like, you're so anti-woke, you end up advocating for options that would be even more inclusive than what you're complaining about? Something for the unemployed to answer. Lastly, there's also options to change your armor material types, add ornaments, change color patterns. You get the idea. It's not relevant now, but you may be surprised to know that at launch, all the color patterns were restricted to whichever team you were on. Just a kind of small, but good example out of many bad ones of how the game's changed over the years. The UI is all fine, everything is easy to understand and navigate, though I do have one pet peeve. On screen, I'm showing the war map menu, which in a nutshell is where you can place a number of troops you accumulate after matches to help your faction win on the map. This war map used to be the UI element you use to navigate matches with, and it was present on the screen almost all the time. Ubisoft eventually removed it and placed it in its own respective menu you have to navigate to. This, on paper, is sort of inconsequential, but it bothers me because it takes something that was a unique and ever-present reminder of the way matchmaking was sort of shaping the map and therefore shaping the story in a way, and it hides it away into a corner in favor of a even more bland UI. UI menus should be functional, yes, but the change pretty much took some of its life away, and even if it is on a small scale, took players out of the experience of actively participating in the war map. Other than that, though, yeah, everything's fine. It's whatever. As far as the sounds of combat go, it's all pretty good. Nothing super standout-ish, but also nothing bad. Weapons sound nice and clanky and whatnot. They could maybe be a bit more impactful, but it's whatever. For voice acting, there is some, but it's scattered. The story mode campaign is fully voice acted, and on that front, it's kind of hammy and cheesy, and the tone sort of flips between the Dark Knight trilogy and then Happy Gilmore. But I kind of like it that way. There's free chapters for the campaign, and the tone of acting is different between each free.
But I am a warden. I had a job to do.
What are you doing among the Warborn?
You talk too much. Vikings.
Outside of the campaign, there is still voice acting, sort of. Every hero is voiced, but outside of a few characters, they don't actually speak anything other than when performing certain moves. Hope you like hearing Jormungandr scream, because you're gonna hear it every 2 seconds every time you fight him. If you've never played the game before, or if you really dislike having to hear characters repeat the same phrases over and over, it might annoy you, but either through genuine nonchalant development or learning to just like the abuse, the repetitive audio does not bother me. At one point, there was a public test that did introduce the ability for all heroes to actually talk to each other in battle, but it never made it out of the testing phase, partially because some heroes had gotten entirely new voice actors for the system. I think not implementing that change was ultimately for the better. On paper, it sounds cool, but I feel like it would have quickly become either annoying or entirely forgettable. To Ubisoft's credit, as far as music goes, this game has had some amazing tracks come out over the years. Different events, seasons, character releases can all bring entirely new themes. Some have been a miss, I feel, but a lot of it is really good. There's a real, almost mythological feeling that comes from listening to the original menu theme. Sadly, there is currently no option to change your menu theme, but hopefully they'll add it in before the game dies or I die from having a stress-induced heart attack as a result of playing it. As for the matches, the music in a match is typically distant and inoffensive, consisting of far-off beats of drums and whistles. Breach matches do ramp up a bit in their final stages though. All in all, the majority of the music you hear in matches is forgettable, but the menu and battle loading themes are where real effort is put in. Normally I would reserve discussing the story of a game until near the end of a video, but honestly the plot is so insignificant in the grand scheme that I feel it's better to just discuss it now. Either way, you aren't playing this game primarily for the story. I'll say overall that the story is fine, worth at least one playthrough, and that's about it. If you don't want spoilers, go to here. When beginning the story, you'll customize your character and begin the first chapter. The story is broken up into 3 chapters, with each chapter being a character from the 3 original factions. I couldn't actually record me customizing my story mode characters, because I guess the options you choose are permanent, so whatever I chose when I was 15 are the options I still have selected. You also have a difficulty option. Way back in the day, I originally completed the campaign on the hardest difficulty, which does give some extra customization stuff, but if you don't care about that, I recommend just doing hard or normal. A final word of caution, if you're picking this game up for the first time, you may think that playing the story mode could be a good way to experience what some of the heroes are like without jumping straight into a match or the training arena. On the one hand, you're correct in that you do get to play various heroes during the story. On the other hand, you're a stinky idiot. because the game has fooled you and you are entirely wrong. Because the heroes in the story mode are the exact same as they were on the day of the game's launch. Literally every hero you could play as in the story has received at least one rework or another at this point. Warden, the first hero you play as, has been reworked like 4 times during the game's lifespan, not to mention all the more general changes to combat the game has seen over the years. So in a way, I recommend you don't learn anything about the heroes' movesets and whatnot from the story mode. And that covers everything but the plot. The first story chapter is about the Knights, with your main character being a warden slash the warden slash warden as in the class warden. For the sake of the story, the term warden represents the literal warden class, but NPCs also refer to you as the warden, and warden also refers to an order of wardens. Nonetheless, you are the warden, and the plot starts off simple enough. You're a mercenary helping a castle fight off an invading force. You kill people, meet the best character in the game, Daubeny. He refuses to fight either the enemy commander or his second. He drafts you in, you win, and immediately get sucked up as a knight into the conquering team. The rest of the campaign follows the warden helping his recruiters, the Blackstone Legion. I'm having a brain fart. The Blackstone Legion wage war against the Vikings to the north. When trying to talk to some of the deserters from the Legion you were previously a part of, the situation dissolves and the warden finally meets the leader and main antagonist of the plot, Apollyon. Now, I know Apollyon probably looks like a nice and reasonable person, but would you believe me if I told you that the objectively evil-looking character is actually just evil? Evidently, the warden did not think about that possibility because he's stupid. So the Knight chapter shows the warden becoming increasingly more disillusioned with what the Blackstone Legion's goals are.
I took an oath to fight for peace. So did you. All of you.
In the lore, wardens are supposed to be enforcers of peace and order, and they take oaths to uphold these concepts. Apollyon isn't having the Legion invade the Vikings because they're a threat, but because she just wants to create a scenario where the Vikings will begin killing each other because LMAO. Every time Apollyon speaks, she preaches that war is the natural state of man, and that war is epic and based.
What do you imagine the clans would do if we burned it all?
They'd starve. Die.
They would unite. But leave them scraps. Just enough for 2, maybe 3 clans. They will fight each other over what remains. The wolves among them will rise. We're not here to kill them. We are here to teach them who they are. To set them free. Time to go home.
Naturally, the warden, being a cuck, finds that purposefully causing war for the sake of war is not very nice. So he eventually abandons the Legion, thus ending the Knight chapter. Having been thrown into a state of chaos by Apollyon, the Viking chapter is the most straightforward of the bunch, which is a bit impressive considering how simple the other chapters already are. The entire Viking campaign is just about raiding people, playing as the raider, no less. You unite your people and immediately begin launching a raid against the Japanese.
To the gates! I welcome you all!
There's not even any plot revelations here, you just raid people. However, the game more than makes up for it by delivering 2 amazing pieces of line delivery.
Child! Might as well ask me to pick up for me! We're Vikings. So that's a no. Valhalla.
So? What did they tell you?
I don't speak Japanese.
Well, now what?
In the midst of the Great Viking Raid, an Orochi is freed from prison, thus marking the start of the final chapter in the story. Having moved on from her intentional starvation crisis against the Vikings, Apollyon is now attempting to just cause a civil war amongst the samurai by killing the emperor and throwing the remaining daimyo into a swamp so they can have a literal battle royale match to see who gets to rule over the nation, which, yeah, okay, sure, why not? Makes sense to me. As the Orochi, or rather as the Emperor's former champion, as the game likes to remind you during this chapter, you help your daimyo in killing off the competition in the name of peace, of course, and then end up sparing the last remaining daimyo because actually deep down, he's a good person. According to your daimyo at least. The others, I don't know, they just wouldn't make the cut or something. Having saved the Empire, you go to the domain of the Knights with the intention of killing Apollyon. You run into the Warden from Chapter 1, beat him up. He says, "I'm not even with Apollyon, bro." You go, "Oh, my bad, man." And then you begin the final mission. If it seems like I'm rushing through the story, it's just because the story really is this simple and quick. As far as the plot goes, aside from listening to Apollyon speak by finding observable objects on the missions, it really is just as straightforward as I'm making it out to be. Anywho, you raid Apollyon's keep, fight her, beat her. She rambles about how she was actually just trying to get people to accept just how heckin' evil and prone to violence they are. And then she dies. Technically, she's right, because just as the knights and samurai are about to make peace, the ever-humble Vikings show up, which somehow causes the knights and samurai to start killing each other, thus continuing the cycle of war. There is an additional scene where some characters from the story discuss striving for peace, and then the story just ends. I've got just a few comments about the story. For one, I know I kind of ragged on it, but I think it's actually fine. And the original intent of the story was to explain why the setting is the way it is. See, at launch, the story took place prior to the current setting of the game, as the story lore and multiplayer lore were meant to be the same, just with the multiplayer being a continuation of what the story laid the foundations of. At some point, the world had undergone some form of rapid-fire sequence of natural disasters, which caused many empires to just kick the bucket, with the continent the game takes place on being this mismatch of various resources and environments, which is why you have 3 radically different cultures bunched up so closely. And it also explains why they're so quick to just kill each other over what limited resources there are. In this sense, Apollyon works in regard to being a representation of the natural state of conflict present in the setting, which would then funnel itself back into the multiplayer experience. Every match is a real canonical skirmish, expressed even further on the aforementioned war map, as the various factions continue to fight each other, gaining and losing the same grounds ad infinitum, with peace being a possible solution, but not one that would occur anytime soon. The original vision of the plot was what I would describe as a light version of Mad Max, but with HEMA thrown in, with this blend of technological advancements in warfare, but stagnation everywhere else. I mean, in the campaign, we see things such as grapple hook launchers and drawbridge ballistas. So it's not like the factions don't know how to use technology. It's just that everyone keeps killing each other quicker than any permanent progress can be made. So I don't have to address it later. I'll just mention that the original lore vision for this game and what it is today are two different worlds. From what I understand, the lead original creator wanted to continue to develop a more realistic and grounded setting. And you can definitely see this in the game's original marketing trailers, even for some of the initial heroes that got released. But the creator ended up leaving or getting fired. I'm not sure. You'd think someone making a For Honor video would look that up, but honestly, I mean, it doesn't matter now, so it's whatever. But either way, he left. And then that led to the weird tonal clash that we have now with Orochis with demons for arms and characters that literally do magic and stuff. Honestly, I stopped paying attention to the lore after the Chinese were added. That's kind of where it peaked, and then anything after that, I didn't care. I think the revelation now in the lore is that there's actually multiple empires and the other continents are just fine or something. I don't know. Overall, the campaign is fine. Give it a shot if you want, but you can ignore it if you aren't interested. Now that that's covered, I can finally start talking about the game. Before even discussing the different heroes or characters, what is the combat actually about at its core? Well, on the base level, it's kinda simple. When facing an opponent, you lock on to them to engage your combat stance, and from here you can do a couple different things. You have your light attacks, your heavy attacks, dodges, guard breaks, throws, blocks, feints, stamina, and parries. Light and heavy attacks are self-explanatory. On a controller, which is what I play on, sorry keyboard bros, I won't do it. You just hit the right bumper for a light attack and the right trigger for a heavy. Whatever direction your guard bar has highlighted is the direction your attacks target. If the left is highlighted, you'll attack left. Dodging is as simple as pressing the dodge button. Outside of not getting hit, dodging can be useful for doing something such as a guard break. A guard break is essentially just a grab. If you successfully guard break someone, you grab them and can follow up with an attack or throw them in a direction. Throwing an enemy into a wall will trigger a wall splat, which typically leaves them vulnerable enough to safely hit them with a heavy attack. Enemies can also be killed if you throw them off a high ledge or into spikes or some other hazard. To block an attack, your locked target needs to match the direction an enemy's attack is coming from, which is typically highlighted for you unless you turn it off in the UI for some reason. If an enemy is attacking you on your right, having your guard direction be on your right when the attack hits will block the attack. Typically, there isn't any follow-up you can do with a regular block, it's just a way to avoid taking damage. Feinting an attack means you cancel the attack animation. This is useful for trying to trick your opponent. You can, for example, start a top heavy, feint it, then quickly do a left light attack as a way to score some damage. Parrying an attack is similar to blocking in that you need to have your guard face the direction of an incoming attack, but rather than simply block, if you hit the right trigger at the correct moment, you will cancel the enemy attack altogether and normally have enough time to follow up with a safe hit of some sort. Doing almost any action in combat reduces your stamina. Run out of stamina and your attacks become slow, and getting thrown will knock you to the ground. Lastly, you have Revenge. Revenge is a meter that builds up whenever you're getting ganked, i.e. being attacked by 2 or more people, and if you survive long enough to proc it, it gives you a damage bonus, knocks enemies attacking you down if you proc it just as they hit you, causes all parries you do while active to knock enemies down, and gives you a full health bar's worth of shield. The usefulness of Revenge varies. Some characters are definitely better at surviving ganks in general and therefore benefit more from Revenge. Other characters, it's more like just delaying the inevitable. The most useful case scenario of revenge that you'll see most of the time is just proccing it as a way to survive long enough for your teammates to arrive. The best part about revenge, in my opinion, is when you're about to win a 1v1 and then your teammate comes by and starts spamming easily blocked attacks at an enemy, feeding them revenge, letting the enemy proc it, and then you die right after. Thanks, man. In actual combat, you'll want all of these systems to flow, mixing and matching your actions while trying to read and react to what your opponent's going to do. And this is just the basics. I'm not even mentioning the other stuff like hyper armor, unique shoves, deflects, various moves and combos different heroes have. Just know it's all there. With that being said though, of course, your skill level won't matter if you run into a dude who hasn't seen sunlight since the day he was born, and he has fused his very essence into his Ubisoft account, enabling him to maintain longevity so long as he plays 20 free hours of For Honor a day. I only say 20 free because he has to spend at least 1 hour gooning to like the For Honor subreddit or something. It doesn't even matter what character this guy plays, he's just gonna parry and perfect react to literally everything you do. You could also run into a scripter, which are basically losers who have a program set up to play the game for them. Speaking of the heroes, there's a lot of them. I was originally going to cover every hero in a sort of 60-second review for each, but given that there's like 30 free or some heroes total, and I don't own all of them anyways, I figured that would take up way too much time. It would practically have to be a video in its own right. I did want to briefly give my thoughts on almost everyone, so with that being said, welcome to Pickle Shrimp's Rapid Fire Objective Takes. In roughly 5 to 15 seconds, I'll give my honest, objective, not up for debate opinion on every hero in the game. If you notice a hero wasn't mentioned at all, that's because they're objectively terrible, shouldn't be in the game, and people who play them should feel bad. Warden, my personal main, best hero in the game, been through 4 reworks and has been peak literally every single time, should be the only hero in the game really, but being the best out of the bunch is a good substitute. Shoulder bashes, and is goated in clashes, and frankly, this dude smashes. Peacekeeper, the OG Knight's assassin, probably a femboy, and frankly, not very interesting. Bleed on hits, laugh as your guard break throw fails to move your opponent 1 inch, then run away and die. How exciting. Realize you're supposed to give those you grab the London special, and just do that instead. Overall, she's okay. Centurion.
Rome!
Just kidding. This is a knight, of course. Literal Centurion without a shield, though I guess the fact that he can punch people after literally every attack makes up for it. He seems annoying on paper, but he's okay. Sim players are typically the sweatiest dudes alive or physically handicapped. 6 grab punches out of 10. Black Prior, also called Vortiger sometimes. This guy was literally broken at his launch, but he got nerfed eventually. Sword and board, quicker than you might assume. Fun combos and the ability to flip people. Certified edgelord, this is my OC sort of character. Mellowed out man gets a meh from me. Griffin, literally Lawbringer but less annoying. Like, no, literally Griffin is canonically the Lawbringer from the story mode. He's fun to fight and fight against, has the same feel as Lawbringer but with more variety and less I'm a dumb baby who needs a busted character to have fun. Solid option. Conqueror, raw squared equals a good character and a good time. Super simple but super fun. Spammable shield bashes and unblockables, but easy to read if you're fighting him. Dear Ubisoft, please give my baby boy the ability to spam his whirlwind AoE again, thank you. Lawbringer. I love slop, says the Lawbringer player on their way to play one of the most brain-dead characters in the game. Spam shove, that's all you have to do. Spam shove and maybe parry once every 5 years. Total garbage. Used to be an okay character, now is just a disgrace, frankly. Gladiator. If having a foot fetish was a class, this would be it. At any time, Glad can poke your heckin' toe beans for the lulz. Not as annoying as he initially seems in my opinion. Just watch out for his AoE and toe stab. Pretty fun to play as too, unless you're me because you suck as Glad. 7 missing toes out of 10. Warmonger. Warden, but annoying. Also, it's just Apollyon, but not. It's just a woman LARPing as her, or something. Raider. For his entire life, Raider has only had like 4 moves, but man, they are some fun moves. Light attacks and taps, uninterruptible heavies, grabs, and unblockable AoEs. Ubisoft knew Raider would be too fun, so they nerfed him by giving him the worst drip in the entire game. Hope you're a fan of 20 different shirtless options, little armor, and chainmail compression tank tops? Berserker. Somewhat fun hero, hyper armor for days, but I personally find them incredibly frustrating to play. Zerk is somewhat easy to read, so it feels like it takes a lot of work in order to just get a fraction of what even other assassins could put out in terms of damage. I've seen some god tier Zerk players though, so I say he's fine if you like the aesthetic. Highlander. Guy with big sword, unique light parries for all direction. Dun McGloss is funny. Pure Celtic swag. Kind of annoying when you're fighting one that just spams his unique stance light attacks, but he's not so bad. Jormungandr. Jormungandr? Yorm is a scream every 2 seconds character that likes to gut punch you and smack you in the head with a hammer for being a dumb idiot. Not as fun as he used to be, even if he was broken at launch, but overall still really solid. Warlord. The definition of he's mid, but I like him. Warlord has never and probably will never have anything fancy in his kit, but he's solid, reliable, and easy to play. If you want a hero that's okay at everything and great at holding out in ganks, then Warlord is your guy. Valkyrie. I don't have much experience as Valk, but I would say she's solid. Fairly quick in combat and pretty scary if played right. Good dodge prone knocking shenanigans, and I'm sure if you have a muscle mommy fetish, you'll like her more than I do. Shaman. Shaman is annoying, and I like her. She's annoying because fighting her and playing as her is mostly the same. Do your AoE but cancel the attack direction to bleed your opponent, then try your best to pounce them uwu style for health and damage. Kensei. Sun Tzu once said that the path of enlightenment is spamming dodge heavy attacks. Source? He told me himself. Kensei is good in every situation, nothing too crazy, but very solid and a great character. Orochi. Garbage. Trash. Poo-poo fart character. Wow, dude. You're gonna spam light attacks and kicks and that dumb thing where you charge at me and I can't tell what direction you're gonna attack me from until literally last second? That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Shinobi. I hate Shinobi. Hitokiri. One-dimensional, whether you fight him or play as him. Everything he does is hyper armor, and his heavies have the weird FromSoft syndrome where they kind of delay themselves right before they hit you. He's kind of whatever, honestly. He probably has asthma, though, if the way he always goes like he's out of breath. Sohei. A literal combo builder character in For Honor is kind of quirky, but I dig it. Build up your souls and unleash one of those Kamehamehas that used to be popular back in the day. That's it. That's the whole character. I mean, he's got some basic attacks, but he's a one-trick pony. He is my baby boy, though. I love him for real. Shigoki. Big boys in town. Backbreak your foes and look so cute while doing it. I love Shigoki, even though he's literally the character I am objectively worst at fighting against in this game. Nobushi. Kind of garbage character, but it's whatever. Hey, remember when Nobushi light bleed spam used to be so broken that when Ubisoft told the community that it actually wasn't, a player entered a For Honor tournament and literally won by spamming the Nobushi tech that Ubisoft swore wasn't an issue? Good times. Aramusha. Infinite light combos and a unique all-direction time and parry make Aramusha pretty fun. It feels good when you can accurately read opponents and reliably trigger that unique parry. Kyoshin. Literally just Aramusha, but better and more annoying. Also, his character was ripped from a boss fight in the Vikings chapter. Straight up. Tion-D. I am Chinese sword guy, says Tion-D. Thank you, Tion-D. Tion-D, he has a terrible dodge attack and he kicks stuff. He's okay. He just kind of feels okay. Maybe even the most okayest of all the characters. Even more than Warlord. Nuxia. Nobody plays Nuxia. But if you do, she's kind of fun, actually. It's just that she has one gimmick, and it's this unique move that only works if you hit the attack on the same direction that the enemy is guarding in. It's just kind of obvious when she's doing it most of the time, so people can literally just change their guard direction to avoid it. Zanhu, the cooler Chinese swordsman. Spammable and unreactable, unblockable lights are cool if you're the one using them and not reacting to them. He also has a unique dodge attack, so aside from not having a kick, he is pretty much just the cooler Tion-D. Zheng Jun, old man, no stamina. Choke the life out of your foes for more stamina. Assume the aura farming stance for more stamina. He's cool. Terrible stamina management because, yes, he is old. Some interesting mix-ups in there too. Should probably go to the retirement home for his own sake though. Shaolin. Here at Ubisoft, we want For Honor to be a historically plausible game. And to achieve that, we have added a character that can literally teleport across the map. He's a monk, very fast, constant mix-ups, really, really aggressive guy who yells a lot. Just like my stepdad when he comes home late and he's been drinking, and Medjay. I forget his name constantly, but he's pretty cool, and he's from
Ancient Egypt.
I like being able to cycle between two different weapon modes via combos, plus he can spin to win in ganks. Honestly, underrated. Probably the only truly solid Outlander character there is. Ocelotl. Ocelotl, my beloved, is someone that I want to love and do, but he really just kind of lacks any proper identity in combat. You'd think he would be an assassin, but he isn't. His unique pouncing stance kind of sucks and doesn't do anything special. So by comparison to everyone else, he's kind of boring, but still viable. And there you go. And that was the super duper mega abridged version of that section. To give you a glimpse of how I feel about the heroes in terms of who should be in the game, I have drafted a tier list for your viewing pleasure. I don't rank heroes overall based on how good I am as them or against them, but rather based on if I think you can ever have fun fighting against them. Ideally, every hero would be reworked or tweaked to be fun, but as is, this is my list of those I would remove from the game entirely and those I would keep. I promise you that if everyone I have in the discard section was removed, the game would be objectively more fun. The only exception to this are what I call X characters from the story but better, which are heroes I don't think should exist as a concept, since they're literally just a variation of an already existing character. Griffin, who I like, is canonically just Lawbringer from the story, like I mentioned earlier. Warmonger is literally just someone LARPing as Apollyon. I just dislike these sort of named characters that are just a more canonical, solidified version of someone else. I don't bother trying to lore nitpick for this game, but I did prefer it when the lore was that every hero was sort of a faceless person and could be anyone filling that role. Having a character that is just X character but different feels kind of lazy in principle. In all seriousness, the only characters I sincerely think are irredeemable garbage are the ones I didn't mention in my section. Varangian Guard, Virtuosa, Khotun, and Pirate.
God damn, they're stupid fucks.
Like, sure, Ubisoft, please do just add a character that can auto-dodge all attacks, attack faster than can be grabbed. Oh, and yeah, give her shoves and hyper armor. Why don't you just ask me to end myself next time? Everyone else is ultimately whatever, but these characters are just the worst. I don't have a good transition idea for this section, so let's move on to gear and feats. As you play matches, you'll unlock random gear for whatever hero you're playing as. Gear serves as both a visual and mechanical way to customize your heroes. Every gear piece has perks that it puts points into. If you reach a certain amount of points in a perk, it becomes active, and is active at all times, so long as your match type uses them. You can have multiple perks active at once. Back at launch, gear used to actually flat out modify things like health, stamina, damage, and other things. The system kind of sucked, so perks are an okay compromise even if some of them are better than others. As you level up your hero, you'll eventually hit a new reputation level every 20 levels. It's not really a prestige system since you don't have any progress reset and you don't get any say in the matter. Higher reputations bring you higher rarities and gear, which have access to higher tier perks, new perk combinations, and new actual graphical looks. Every gear piece can have its appearance changed to that of another gear piece you've unlocked, so you can have any gear piece you want, have any look you want for it. Feats are buffs or abilities that can be equipped in your hero's loadout, and every character has access to 12 feats? Yes. You can only bring 4 feats into a match, and feats are always unlocked in tiers. Feats can range from being pointless to absolutely annoying, like Black Prior's ability to just straight up remove revenge from someone. Honestly, just bring whatever feats you want. A feat can potentially clutch a match, but it's not something that I think is worth that sort of thinking. At this point, there are still some non-gameplay related elements that I need to address, like the season pass and the currencies and whatnot. But we're going to take a break from this and segue back into the actual game modes, and then we'll come back to this later. The bread and the butter of this game, Dominion is the main mode For Honor. In essence, Dominion is like a MOBA light. You have 3 lanes, with 2 lanes being capture points and 1 lane being a minion lane. To a slight extent, some heroes are better at clearing the minion lane than others. The goal of the mode is for your team to build up enough points so that the enemy team begins breaking. If the entire enemy team is killed while they're breaking, then the match ends. It is possible for a team to rally while breaking. If the enemy team manages to reduce your team's points below 1,000, then the enemy will rally, and thus respawn as normal until they break again. Holding a point gives a flat 100 points bonus to your team's bar, so long as the capture point is held. Lose the point, and the 100 points bonus goes to the enemy team instead. Every point under your command, besides the minion lane, will produce a 1 point a second, so long as your team holds it. If someone on your team is standing within the capture zone of a point you control that is not being contested, then the bonus increases to 2 points a second. I made mention near the start of the video about how maps don't really affect gameplay, and Dominion is a good example of that. The most variation you'll get in gameplay is maybe the minion lane being swapped to either the center or the side of the map. There's other little differences, like one map having machinery that can crush you, one map having gates that can crush you, but it's so tiny on its own that it doesn't really matter and doesn't affect the match 99.999% of the time. I don't have proof, but I swear that some maps are cursed or something. Anytime I play on the map that's like the fortress, I almost always lose. I can't prove it to you, but I know there's something up with the vibes there. Playing Dominion can range from feeling like taking candy from a blind, deaf, quadruple amputee homeless man, all the way up to getting flayed alive with a cheese grater. Sometimes you might get a match that's a genuinely fun back and forth, but you might also get a match where you're paired with people who are playing the game for the first time, and everyone on the enemy team is a total rep of 1,000, with every individual character maxed out to rep 80. Honestly, the matchmaking in this game is genuinely terrible. It's supposed to match everyone based on skill, but I think it matches people based on choosing which players the servers want to make suffer the most. I normally don't rage in games. I'm a nice, cool, chill, and nonchalant guy once you get to know me, as it were. But man, I have said things in Dominion matches in fits of rage that would make international agencies look on in bewilderment.
You stupid.
It is genuinely pure agony at times. They say suffering builds character, and in many cases I agree, but trust me when I say there is no virtue to be gained from the punishment you'll experience at times when playing this mode. You never really know a guy until it's 2 a.m. and you're 8 Dominion losses deep, and your homeboy just starts talking about how population transfer isn't actually a bad idea, and that certain people shouldn't be allowed to play video games online.
You know, I actually think killing people is making the world a better place.
I'm just saying, man, this slop brings out the worst in you. I don't care how much of a nice guy you are, IRL. Joker was right. When the dubs are down, the Discord call starts eating each other. Duel is pretty straightforward. No feats, no perks, just hero versus hero, 1 against 1. Whoever gets 2 out of 3 rounds wins. These matches are pretty short, and I pretty much play Duel like never personally. There are some people who do only play Duel, and as long as one other person is playing it, you shouldn't have an issue trying to find a match. Brawl is Duel but better because it has the same match rules, only this time it's a 2v2. Normally in Brawl, people do not gank, and it instead functions like having 2 duel matches occurring at the same time. If you win your duel but your partner loses theirs, you get to have a match within a match. Typically, the best way to see early on if someone is going to be honorable or not in this regard is to see if they emote at you before a fight. If someone just crackhead sprints at you the second the match starts, it's normally pretty safe to assume that they're going to gank you. I'm not saying that brawls should or should not be this way, as I normally just go with the flow, but it is something to be aware of. The same goes for Dominion now that I think about it. Sometimes in Dominion you'll see someone who only wants to 1v1 and refuses to participate in ganks. Just something to bear in mind. When you've been playing this game as long as I have, you learn to stop trying to have an ideal way in which you think players should conduct themselves. Tribute is one of the 2 modes that is practically never played, and in fact for both this match and deathmatch/skirmish, I had to just boot up a custom game with bots because I couldn't find a match for either. Tribute is like capture the flag, though in this case it's flags because there are free banners on the map. Capture all free banners, place them in your team's shrines, and defend them long enough to win. The shrines also provide your team with different buffs while you have them in certain shrines, such as being able to see every enemy on the map, a damage buff, or a defensive buff. Honestly, the game mode's kind of fun. Sure, it isn't as exciting as something like Dominion, but I do wish it had at least a somewhat active player base in it. Deathmatch and Skirmish, which are bundled under one search option, are the lamest game modes in my opinion. One is just like Brawl and Duel, but with a 4v4 and some buffs on the map, and the other is a sort of weird, watered-down version of Dominion with no lanes, different enemy NPCs onto the map, and that's kind of it. They're both kind of forgettable overall. Breach is without a doubt my favorite game mode. When the game first launched, I was hoping that the devs would add something like it. It's seen some changes over the years, but Breach is in essence a siege match. Attackers work to assault an enemy fortress, and the defenders work to stop that from happening. Each Breach match has free phases. Phase 1 and 2 entail the attackers working to break down the gate, while the defenders work to damage the attacker's ram. Phase 3 centers around the commander, the attackers work to kill him, and the defenders work to save him. On the attacker side, you can work to either clear enemies from your ram or take over defense points. Your ram's overall health determines how many respawns your team is allowed once you reach the final phase, and if your ram is destroyed outright before that, then the match ends. Killing enemy soldiers and standing near the ram will make it move and attack the gate faster, and taking defense points from the enemy will replace the enemy troops with friendly archers who will damage enemy soldiers. In the defender's corner, the roles are pretty much just reversed. Killing all the soldiers near the enemy ram and having no enemy players near it will force the ram to stop, during which time your own soldiers can attack the ram. Before being taken over, the capture points already default to having friendly archers at them. Once the enemy ram gets close to the gate, going to the cauldron zone will allow you to use the cauldron to damage the ram. It's worth defending the prior capture points for this reason alone, as when the enemy captures the cauldron point, it will turn into a constant fighting zone, and any second spent not using the cauldron when it's available is another second in which the enemy ram can wind up to damage the gate. Both the ram and the gate can be buffed with a banner. A few minutes after the match starts, a banner will spawn in. Claiming the banner for the attackers gives the ram a shield, and likewise for the gate. The shield is not temporary, and for the defenders especially can be huge. By default, the gate only needs to be rammed 3 times in order for it to break, and with a banner active, this goes up to 4. That may not sound like much on paper, but the time needed to actually hit the gate with the ram can be pretty much ground to a halt if the defending team continuously keeps the ram clear of any attackers. In Phase 2, the banner is still present, but another way of buffing your team will spawn in, the Guardian. The Guardian is essentially a mini-boss that, when killed, buffs the players of the team who were in proximity when it was killed. The Guardian's buff gives all buffed players a full shield, infinite stamina, and the ability to one-shot the regular soldiers. The Guardian buff can practically change the course of the match if used right. The game does force a conflict of interest, as both the banner and the Guardian spawn in at the same time. Not even to mention the fact that the rest of the match is still occurring. So it is possible for someone to sneak kill the Guardian, or sneak steal the banner, or for objectives to be completed while one team is doing one of those two. It's also possible to straight up steal the Guardian buff from the enemy team, which is funny. I've seen a lot of dudes rage quit over this. The buff is only rewarded to the team that lands the killing blow on the Guardian, not the team that did the most damage to it. That means it is entirely possible for the enemy team to get the Guardian to a sliver of health, only for you to come in at the last second and land the final blow, thus giving the buff to you instead. There's also various other buffs throughout the map, ballistas you can use, and a few extra goodies. Breach matches are definitely the longest of the bunch, as they can last up to right around 30 minutes or so. I don't mind the longer match time, but the aforementioned effects I mentioned when talking about Dominion can increase tenfold in Breach. Where getting a bad match in Dominion means, only 10 minutes of suffering, in Breach, you can have half an hour of pure agony. You can technically just quit out of any match, but 1, that's cringe, and 2, doing so prevents you from matchmaking for 15 minutes unless you alt F4 your game, in which case the penalty doesn't apply. Arcade mode is the game's PvE mode. It's a sort of series of mini-fights you do with different modifiers affecting both you and the NPCs you're fighting. Arcade is the only game mode that has gear level penalties. If your overall gear rating is lower than the recommended score for the mission you're doing, then you do less damage. If it's higher than the recommended score, you do more. There's also weekly or event-related arcade missions, and those can give some unique rewards like effects or ornaments. Arcade missions can be played solo or in co-op. It's kind of whatever, just another way in which Ubisoft adds a random one-off thing to a game that just sort of exists in isolation and isn't used outside of where it resides. From time to time, For Honor will have an event. Events can range from being total nothing burgers to overhauling the entire theme of the game, changing the intro cinematic, adding a new main menu theme, changing the look of the soldiers, bringing new executions, emotes, etc. Events can also bring new game modes, and these can be all over the place in what they actually entail. I remember the Rabbids event game mode. Good times. Event modes can be entirely unique too, like the current event being this weird PvE co-op raid dungeon with a boss fight at the end. I honestly appreciate Ubisoft at least doing unique things for most of the event modes. I just wish that there was an event playlist that would cycle between modes, because once the event is over, the mode is gone too. Hello, hi, this section was added the day of my voice recording. I forgot to mention there's a custom match and training arena system too. good for screwing around with movesets and whatnot. That's it for all the game modes. I've got some thoughts on what the game has to offer overall, but I'll save them for the near end of the video. With that being said, let's finally circle back and address currency and battle pass stuff. There are what I would call 2+2 currencies in this game: steel, salvage, XP boost, and scavenger crates. Steel is the main currency and it's used for practically everything. In-game, steel can be earned through playing matches and completing orders. Steel can also be purchased with real-world money. Steel is used to upgrade gear, change the look of your gear, unlock various things for your heroes like emotes and executions, and can even unlock heroes themselves. The rate at which you earn steel in-game is fine. It could certainly be worse. If you play just long enough to complete your orders every day, you'll earn a decent chunk of steel. I've been asked before if For Honor is pay to win, and I would say sort of, maybe, but not really. It would be more accurate to say that some heroes are overpowered, and if they required that you buy new heroes with real-world currency only, then I would say they are pay to win. But again, you can earn every hero through steel. I've got a friend who pretty much doesn't use steel at all for customizing his heroes, so he has enough saved up to buy like 2 new heroes if he wishes. Plus, all of the heroes are perfectly viable in the sense that you can do good as them. And I've never felt the need to spend real-world money on a new hero in order to be good at the game. The main reason my steel reserve is almost always low is because I'm the type of autistic gamer who wants to make multiple loadouts with different gear perks and looks and executions and emotes and everything else. And I do that for literally every hero. If you're not like that though, you'll save up a good amount in no time. Because every game is Fortnite, there are of course battle passes. I say battle passes because there are normally 2 or 3 passes active at once. A current season battle pass, a previous season pass, and an event season pass. If you've played an online game in the last 6 years or so, you know how this goes. Every pass has free tiers that don't really give you anything, and then forking over real money unlocks the premium tiers where all the actual rewards are. The second main currency, salvage, is used to change the look of your gear and upgrade your gear in addition to the steel cost. It's also used to activate an XP boost before a match if you don't have an XP boost ticket. XP boost tickets just do what the name says. Spending one activates said boost. Lastly, there are scavenger crates. Scavenger crates are used to instantly generate 5 random pieces of gear for whatever hero you have selected. If you don't have a scavenger crate, you can just use steel instead. Overall, I'd say the currency as is fine. There's no actual premium currency, and the rate at which you earn the currencies is fair enough if you play somewhat consistently. It could most certainly be a lot worse, and that's a real show of restraint from a company whose stock value is rapidly free-falling into oblivion. I already mentioned briefly that the game works fine on a pure technical level, so the real question regarding issues/changes is largely about subjective changes. I'm not here to sell my dream version of For Honor, but if I could implement 2 changes to the game, it would be to have maps with unique mechanics in them. Imagine a Dominion match, but one of the zones moves during the match, like a river platform or something. Or a map where one of the zones has wild animals in it. Or a breach match that has a super cool big ram like the one from the campaign. Or the bridge ballistas even, or the grappling hook launchers. Visual diversity is nice, but I would love it if maps could have actual events in them that could trigger during a match to spice things up. It doesn't need to happen every time, just sometimes. Secondly, like I said, I would like to have a prior event playlist. There have been some really cool event modes over the years that just haven't seen the light of day in forever. Or maybe have a playlist that cycles old events every week and call the game mode Echoes of the Past or something. There was a cool event for Jormungandr where it was a breach match that had a literal serpent god on the map. Like, just let me play that again, Ubisoft. It obviously isn't coming back anytime soon. Well, here we are, at the end. Trust me when I say there's so much more I could talk about with this game. I've practically grown up with it in some ways. I have a lot of thoughts about every hero, every map, every mode, etc. that I haven't mentioned in this video, but like I mentioned at the start, I want to actually be able to complete this video, and I don't want to be here for 4 hours ranting. While working on the script, I've been asking myself over and over and over if I would recommend For Honor. The answer is, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. On the one hand, the game is really fun at times, and there's genuinely nothing else like it on the market. On the other hand, there have been so many times in which the game, due to either its matchmaking or new heroes, is just genuinely horrible to play. I also have zero idea on just how accessible this game would be to a new player. I can't recommend or not recommend For Honor because For Honor is For Honor. It resides in a unique place in my gaming catalog, entirely unto itself. I wish I could say get it, I wish I could say don't get it. I really do think it's something that you just have to decide for yourself. If you have a friend who plays it or is willing to play it with you, that would probably make the onboarding experience better, but like, do you want to subject your friend to MK Ultra? You'll either achieve a bond so tight that modern offers would write erotica about you, or your friendship will fall so horribly that people will think you were fated to end each other. For Honor is a great and horrible game, and I love it, and I hate it. See you next time.